Okay, let's create a EC2 autoscaling group using elastic IPs, SNS to get static IP assignment. Oftentimes, you need to have static IP assignment so that you can do things like locking down access to your databases based on IPs. However, EC2 autoscaling groups do not have guaranteed static IPs, so you don't necessarily know which IPs will be scaling as your application goes up and down. So I'm going to show you how to do that. This is based on a obscure article about how to do this, but I don't like using CloudFormation, so we're going to do it from scratch. Let's get started. First off, we're going to have to create an elastic IP. You can find elastic IP under the EC2 instance area here. And all an elastic IP is a definite IP address that you can detach and attach to various instances. We'll get it out of this pool. Doesn't really matter what it is. Let's give it a name. Call it devnode1. All right, so I already completed that step. When we scale up and down, we're going to want to have a SNS topic. This is basically just going to be the thing that goes from your auto scaling group and notifies a Lambda that it is scaling up and actions need to be taken. So let's call this auto scaling group SN notification. Standard's fine. Make the display name the same. Why not? Create the topic. Okay. So after the topic is created, you're going to need a Lambda that is run when messages are written from the auto scaling group to that topic. So let's create the Lambda. I'm not going to waste your time explaining why we're doing each little thing. I'm just showing you how to do it. At the end of this, you will have static IPs assigned to all the nodes in your auto scaling group. So let's call this Lambda elastic EIP assigner. It runs on node 22. Looks good. Create the function. After you create the function, because we're not going to be using modules, we'll be using regular constant require type language. Big thing is you need to change this name from MJS to just plain JS. Press enter, change the name to JS. After that, take this code, which I provide for you in this repo, and which I got from that article, copy this code into the Lambda. Boom. Save it, deploy. That code is now running in that Lambda. Next step, add an SNS trigger to the Lambda. So when this gets called, this topic gets called by the auto scaling group, when a new instance is launching, it will trigger this Lambda. Go up here and do add trigger, select a source, SNS. The topic should be the one that you just created. Add that. Bonus points, if you care. What this does when you add a trigger is it creates a subscription to that Lambda, which you can see in here, right here. Okay, so we now have a Lambda that's triggered by the topic which we created. What we need to do next is that there is a lot of code within this that requires a role that lets it interact with EC2. Things like describing instances, associating IPs, all that fun stuff. So we have to create a role and attach a policy to it that lets it do that. Okay, so let's go into IAM. And create that policy. When you create a Lambda, the policy which is automatically connected to it allows it to write to CloudWatch logs, but that's it. So what we're going to do is create a policy that allows you to write to the CloudWatch logs and also interact with EC2 instances. So this will be a policy related to Lambdas. Actually, what am I doing? Let's just edit the JSON. So we have the policy right here. Go into raw, you can see basically what it does is it allows you to write to CloudWatch and also describe these instances, associate addresses, and complete lifecycle actions on auto-scaling groups. So let's create that policy. Terrible formatting, doesn't matter. Policy name, I had it in here. Let's name it EIP assignment and CloudWatch logging because that is what it does. You can see all the things it can do here. Create that policy. Okay, so this Lambda will need a role. A role is like a user, but more ephemeral. Let's create this role, and it will be for Lambdas. EIP assigner Lambda. Use cases for Lambdas. And the name of it is EIP assignment in CloudWatch. Attach this policy that we just made to that role. Make the role name just be EIP assigner Lambda. Cool. So you can see that we now have this role, and go back into Lambda. We now have the role with a policy on it. Go into Lambda, go into configuration, click on permissions. It has the default one. We don't like that. Edit it. From the existing role, find the one that we just created, EIP assigner Lambda, assign it to it, save it. Cool. We now see it can do a lot more than it did previously. Okay. We've assigned the role. Let's go and create the auto-scaling group. So go into EC2. I have 0 instances running. We're going to create a basic auto-scaling group, and usually when it spawns new instances, it would give them random public IP addresses. What we want is static IP addresses taken from Elastic IP so that you can whitelist them in things like Mongo or wherever else you're using DBs. So let's just call this my auto-scaling group, my ASG. I already have a template. That doesn't matter. AZs, whatever, every AZ. Desired capacity started out at 1 because we're going to scale it, and then you'll see the Elastic IP is assigned to it. No tags. Next. Create auto-scaling group. Okay. So there are things called lifecycle hooks. What we're going to do is take the launch lifecycle hook and use that to trigger the notification topic that we have from SNS. That notification is really just a dumb pipe that tells Lambda to run. Lambda runs the code provided, which looks at your available EIPs, looks at the instance which is being booted up, and it assigns that IP to that instance. So this is booting up. Here comes the fun part. So within your ASG, under instance management, you can see lifecycle hook. In an easy world, you would do create lifecycle hook, give it a name, and then tell it to trigger your SNS topic. However, the UI lacks that. I do not know why. If anyone from AWS is watching this, for the love of God, please add the notification trigger on that as well as the role ARN. So what we're going to do is use the AWS CLI, which does work. So there's a command here that you can use to put a lifecycle hook into a certain auto-scaling group. Okay, so that lifecycle hook is going to need a role that allows it to write to SNS. We do not currently have that. So we have to go back into IAM and create a role that allows the auto-scaling group lifecycle hook to write to SNS. Let's do that now. So they have a thing here called EC2 auto-scaling. Choose that. EC2 autoscaling under use case. Under the sub use case, do EC2 autoscaling notification access. This is a role that's already managed by AWS, which allows your autoscaling group to write to SNS or SQS. Next. Looking good. Next. Give it a name. I'll call it ASG SNS notification. Trusted thing or trusted policy means that it's going to be available to ASGs. And there you go. Create that role. ASG notification. We're going to need this in a second for the command. All right. Pop open a terminal. One sec. Pop open a terminal. Go into the repo that I provide. Put that in there. And here are the things we're going to fill out. The lifecycle hook name, call it scale up. Autoscaling group name should be the name of your autoscaling group. My ASG. Lifecycle transition. We're going to hook into the EC2 instance launching transition phase. Notification target ARN. This must be the same SNS topic which we created earlier. It'll be sending this message to here. So let's get the ARN of that topic, which has a subscription to the Lambda. All right. I'll make this bigger. Don't know why I can't. Role ARN. That role is going to be the same role that we just created a second ago. I lost it, so we're going to have to go back into IAM. Go to roles. It was ASG something. ASG notification. This allows it to write to SNS. Copy that ARN. Don't need pest control. Terminal, not terminate. Role ARN is that. Heartbeat timeout. This is how long the Lambda has to run. It shouldn't take more than several seconds. Default result is if you are unable to assign an EIP to it, an elastic IP, then we should abandon the scale up. Okay, so this is the AWS CLI method that gets you around the fact that the UI doesn't have anything. So let's give it a try. Looks like that ran. Go back into your autoscaling group. Go under instance management. And you should have the lifecycle function now with the proper role and the notification target. Okay, so moment of truth. We're now going to scale up, and if all goes well, we should see the new instance has an elastic IP assigned. The reason it has it assigned is because the lifecycle hook notifies SNS, which then triggers the Lambda, and that Lambda has code which is permitted to assign EIPs to this new instance. So let's give it a try. You can edit your capacity, your desired capacity, set it to 2, then do update. Now we wait. Pending. Here's the new instance. Amazing. You can see here that the elastic IP dev node 1, which we created way back in the beginning of this tutorial, has been assigned to that new node. So you can then go into your databases or whatever it is and add that IP address. When it scales down, that IP address will be released back into your elastic IP pools. So that is how you can assign static IP addresses to autoscaled EC2 instances using SNS and Lambda. Hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, leave a comment under the video. The GitHub will be there as well. Thank you.